Welcome to Clamped, the weekly podcast where we discuss all things related to creating, living, and making projects. I'm your host, Grant Alexander, and joining me as always is Adam Mackey and Jessy Radfink. And today we're going to be talking about shop safety.
Yeah.
All right. I thought someone would jump in there, but they're not going to.
I was just thinking, I'm a little worried the stories that I might hear from y'all today.
Right.
We'll
Well,
see.
so I have all of my fingers, unlike, some of the other big makers out there that will not be named in this episode. But, in thinking about the times that almost every single time I've had an incident on a power tool, it's been when I've been doing either something for the first time and not thinking it through, which is myself to blame, which they're always myself to blame, or producing something, like doing 100 of something, and then like the last one, your mind has already shut off and moved to the next thing. Yeah. And I think that is like paying attention is the number one thing when it comes to safety.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yep, 100%. Because it is very easy to just get into the flow and stop. Your brain just stops.
Right. Well, and I think it's kind of like if you've ever driven home, like if you drive to work, every once in a while you drive home and you get home and you go, I don't recall the trip.
How did I get here?
I remember getting in my car. I remember getting on the highway. I'm now at home. What happened?
Wait, was that light green or red?
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Oh,
and
that's so scary. I hate that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the times that you need to realize you are not in the right mindset and you need to get out of the shop. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
But oftentimes why you have an accident is because
you get lax.
You're not self-aware at that point. That's the whole thing. Mm-hmm. You've turned into a robot, and unfortunately you're not a robot. You can't do the same thing over and over again.
I must be a robot then, because it's very rare that I go in the shop and don't come out with an incident. Like, by an incident, I mean like cutting my finger with a Stanley knife or dropping something on my toe or something. Like I always hurt myself all the time. Like my hands look like they've been to hell and back.
Me too, but it's almost always like it's abrasions, like scraping up against something. So it's never like I don't cut myself because I realize the blade needs to go somewhere, but I'll often just like be walking around and just like rub my hand up against sandpaper or something. Like I don't know, that's not very good.
Or like I'm holding a screw and the drill slips.
That's happened, yeah.
I've drilled into my hand before.
Oh my god!
With a drill bit or a screwdriver bit?
With a drill bit.
Nice.
Yeah.
How'd that go?
Chunky. It was fine. I just put a Band-Aid on it and kept going. And I can feel, if I touch where I drilled, I can feel it in the end of one of my fingers, but it's on my palm.
Oh.
So I must have hit a nerve or something. Yeah.
Rerouted it.
Both my hands, I've got one spot on both of my hands where if I touch it, I feel it somewhere else.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is wild.
You know what the worst part is, right? So I hate going to like the hospital and stuff. I'm like, I don't need it. I'm a man. No, not really, but like I don't go to hospital. The one time I cut myself, it wasn't that long ago, like about a month ago, I cut myself with a Stanley knife and my wife's like, you need to go to the hospital. I think you need stitches. I go there and they're like, no, it's fine. You just need to we'll put some glue on it, but you just need to bandage it up. It'll be fine. You didn't need to come here at all. And I'm like, you're reiterating my thought process every time I hurt myself. This is why I don't come here.
I am very similar in that I hate going to the hospital, even though and I think it's like a problem with like when you've prepaid for your health care, like through taxes, for some reason, like they drill it into you, like only use in an emergency.
Yeah.
So I broke my hand and I went 2 days later.
Oh my God.
So I walked around with a broken hand for 2 days and just kept going. How?
Well, because you walk on your feet.
That I just don't I don't understand how you could function with one broken hand for 2 days before you're like, oh, maybe I should go to the hospital.
Well, it probably just felt like a sprain or something, right?
Well, I just was like, I punched a wall. I was young and stupid and punched a wall. And
Oh,
that wall was a couple of different 2x4s right there. And my
Hmm.
hand said, I don't want to go through that. Said, I'd rather just go a different direction, up. And so I just thought, and I was been drinking at the time. And
okay.
there was a whole like,
Now this makes more sense.
there was a situation. So then I
No one
woke.
punches
I
a
went
wall
to-
if they haven't been drinking.
Okay. But all that to say is there was a situation. Instead of punching a guy in the face, I punched a wall. I probably should have punched the guy. My hand wouldn't have been broken. Anyways, in the morning, I woke up and I was like, oh, that sucks. Like, I really hurt myself punching that wall. Right. And then so I went through the day and I was like, oh, I can barely like even close my hand. Well, hopefully it gets better tomorrow. I'll just put some ice on it. And the next day I was like, ooh, no, like moving my hand hurts a lot. Well, probably because there's bones like moving around when I'm doing that.
Crunching against each other.
Yeah. So then I went to the hospital and I spent a long time in the emergency room, then got x-rays, got a intern to do, they were doing, that happens, whatever. They got to learn somehow. They tried to put my arm in a half cast. And when you do a cast, for people who haven't done it, they put like cotton and then they put the like cast material over top of the cotton.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, this is the first time she'd ever done a cast. And apparently she'd never had a cast before. And she started dunking the cotton in the water.
Oh,
So she was going to put, she was going to put this like wet cotton ball bullshit all over my hand. And I was like, is that how you're supposed to do it? And then the attending, whoever was supervising this doctor was like, that's not what you're supposed to do. And then they did it. So the other thing is they wanted to like shoot up my hand with like a local anesthetic. And I was like, I've been living with this for 2 days. I think you can just like put it in the right spot. And it was zero pain. It was actually like it got rid of
Probably
pain.
better. You relieved it. Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, I was like, this is great. Thank you for not shooting up my hand. Now, the only thing I wish is that so she didn't do a very good job with the cast, and my bones didn't heal properly. So on my right hand, my pinky, marital super, whatever the one is there, is just like I can feel it. It like has a peak in it where it's supposed to be straight.
Oh.
And so this note to everyone: if you don't think the doctor is competent, feel free to say something, because if not, you're going to get a real loose cast. It's not going to heal properly because it's not going to keep your bones straight.
Why is an intern doing a job they've never done before without an overlooker?
They had an overlooker.
Well, clearly
That's
they
what I
weren't
don't
doing a good enough
understand.
job, but
Yeah. Well, guess what? You know what? Everyone's got to fuck up sometimes. It's just unfortunately it was my
unfortunately, the worst occupation to have to fuck up some. You learn from your mistakes, but someone else has to deal with the consequences.
You know what the other worst part is? Because I was like my macho stupid attitude was like, wow, don't go back to the doctor. Just you could like in a month
You cut
can
it
just
off
take
yourself.
that. So it was only a half cast, so I didn't have to cut it off. I just stopped wearing it.
Right.
Like, I wish they had put it in a full cast, because then I would have had to go back. And by that, I mean, I would have had to cut it off myself. But yeah.
But even still, like things like that, it'd be too late to fix anything anyway.
Yeah, I probably need to punch something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
If
doctor
you drop a
totally
baby, you got
couldn't
to drop them
reset it.
again to reset the damage you did.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So all that to say is that you probably shouldn't be doing drugs and alcohol while making. And I know we had an entire episode about drugs and alcohol, but I think it's important to talk about it in context of making. And I know that I definitely drink sometimes. And I know there's lots of people who smoke when they're making. And there's a big difference between having like a beer and having a 6-pack of beer and then going out to the shop. And there's a big
Yeah.
I'm
difference
going to
between like
play
going out
devil's
to the
advocate
shop
here.
and sanding. No problem with that. You want to sand away. Hand sanding, do that all day long, no matter how drunk you are, because it only gets better. But using power tools, it's probably not a good idea.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like I'd happily drink a case of beer and go sand all night.
Yeah.
That's probably the best time to do it, but not using table saw and stuff. Nothing that can cause damage to you. Although if you're that drunk, you might end up sanding your hands. Speaking of scratching your hands and stuff on things, as you sure.
So yeah, I don't think I could actually physically make drunk. I really don't think I could, because being drunk is such a weird, like, when I'm high, I'm fine. I feel like I'm kind of in control of the situation, but when I'm drunk, no. Like, shit just happens and you're like, whoa. And so yeah, I don't think I could actually get myself out there and believing I could do something while drunk. But I have sanded a lot of embroidery hoops while high, and it's great.
Yeah. I think there's a big difference between a lot of different people's like levels of drunkenness.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people who are like, have a couple of beers and they start slurring their words. And David from GW Woodbuilds, who messaged me on Instagram and said, "Oh my God, how many beers did you have last week?" I was like, "The normal amount." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And then later he messaged me and said, "Oops, it was on 0.75 speed." So I was talking like this.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah. So he apologized for calling out my drunkenness.
Have you guys ever, I don't know if we want to say this on the podcast, but have you ever driven a car after drinking? Like a lot?
Mm-mm.
When I was a kid.
Yeah. I did once when I was a kid. I didn't have to. We could have walked, but my wife lived like 3 streets away from the party where we're at. And I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to move my car. It was the most terrifying thing I've ever done in my life. I was shitting myself the whole time. And it wasn't like I was worried about getting caught. I wasn't focused. I felt like I had never driven a car in my life. It was such a weird feeling. And I've never done it again.
Right.
Can't blame you for that. I've never done it because I started drinking like quite old. Like, I didn't start drinking probably until my mid-20s.
Right.
And I don't know. Yeah, at that point, I had enough self-awareness. It was just like, this is not going to happen. This is not a good idea.
So I had a similar story to Adam, where I drove to a bar figuring to have dinner and then some friends and whatever, and then it ended up being an ice storm. I was like, I don't want to walk home in this, and I drove home. And I lived on a single lane hill, and all I remember is I like drunkenly went past the spot where I had to, like, because it was all ice, drove past my parking spot and couldn't back up. Couldn't get it back up because it was like up a hill and obviously it was super icy, and backing up, like, my brain wouldn't let me do it. And so I raced to the bottom, and the bottom was a river. And right at the bottom, I hit the e-brake and I did a 180, and I turned it around and I went straight up and I parked the car at the top of the hill. And then I went to bed. And I was like,
wow.
That shouldn't have happened, and it did, and
That's
it worked
scary.
out. Instead of, like, I really easily could have just went right into the river.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting next. Something bad
Me
to do
too.
with the river.
No, and
It's
so
like, oh,
I
God.
never get punished. I never punished. It's wonderful. Got the horseshoe up my ass. But at that time, I also went, the only reason I got into this situation is because of my, drinking and driving, so I never did it again.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, 'cause especially, like, it was like Adam. I'm like, oh, it's like 2 blocks. I'd easily, if I had walked, I would have been home sooner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And without less color, like, it would have, like, I might have fallen on my ass because of the ice storm, but I don't know, it was stupid.
I'm pretty sure I drove home at like 10 k's an hour. Like, I was driving so slow because I was that scared.
I've only ever driven high once too, and that was the worst experience of my life.
Yeah.
And
It is
because
unpleasant.
everything felt so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at the speed, and you're going like 10. You're like, what?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
that's why everyone in Colorado drives so bad. Because they all drive like way below the speed limit and like they are not really there. So yeah, I
And
see
that was
that a
from the
lot,
same
actually.
location, the same bar, to the same house. So I'm glad I don't live there anymore. It's bad. That was bad decision. Bad decisions.
Discussions.
Decisions. Uh, so the other day, to get back on a little bit on topic, um, I went to go print something with my 3D printer as I normally do. I press preheat the bed, and I only do the preheat PLA on the Ender 3 because if you don't do that, it preheats one and then the other. But if you do the preheat button ahead of time, it does them both at the same time. And I'm like,
Yeah.
That's a good little life hack.
yeah. So it's like you save yourself 30 seconds. Totally worth it, though. So I do that, and then it just like super loud, annoying beeping at me. And I'm like, whoa, this is weird. This is new. And it was like a thermal runaway.
Yep, that's what I
Oh.
had. E1?
So, yeah.
Yep,
So
exactly what I
took,
had.
yeah. And I was like, I've never had that before. That's weird. And I was like, okay, I'll restart the machine. Maybe something weird happened. Did it again. It immediately went into thermal runaway again. I went, okay, well, got to figure out what it is. But it was one of those things where I go, sometimes I press the start button and I walk away.
Yeah.
And I know they have a safety feature now, but they didn't used to. You could easily burn down your house if that thing just kept going hot and hot and hot. By the way, there was some filament stuck in my little silicone boot, which was stopping it from. I don't even understand how it got up in there, but it did. So
I don't actually know what the issue was with mine. I replaced the whole hot end because I upgraded it, and then it still did it. And then I bought a new motherboard because everything on Google said it was a motherboard. Went to replace the motherboard and realized that I plugged the hot end into the wrong spot. Put it into the right spot, and it all worked fine. Because what happened was, on the motherboard how it's got like the little white bits that the cable clips into over the pins. Well, the last one had come off, like the actual surrounding part that it clips into. So the two pins were there, but I didn't see them. I just saw like the last white box and put it in there, not realizing there's meant to be one thing not plugged in because I've got I don't have a Z probe anymore, and then the bed and the hot end. So I had it like the bed plugged into the Z probe or the Z thing, and then the thing in so that's what my issue was.
So all I have to say is, like, I know 3D printers have become almost ubiquitous in the maker community, and they're starting to, like, I think in 5 years we're going to see them at Home Depot or Walmart on the
I'd
shelf.
be surprised if it wasn't sooner.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the things that people don't realize how dangerous they can be. Same with a lot of other digital tools like CNCs, like a CNC or a router. Like,
Yeah.
I could definitely see like a CNC starting a fire,
Yeah.
especially like a CNC router or a laser. Laser definitely starting a fire. Obviously, that's what they do.
Or even,
But
excuse me, even things that people have had in their garage for years, batteries. Leave them on charge
yes.
and they catch fire all the time.
Yeah. Someone's not letting me finish my thing to go on to the next topic, but that's cool. That's cool.
Well, I thought it was part of the topic.
No,
They
there's
seem like they go together.
So lithium. I remember when lithium batteries became a thing, and the hobby industry was way ahead of mainstream everything. So lithium became a thing, and within like 6 months of us starting to sell them, we were selling and recommending everyone buy fireproof sacks to charge their batteries.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because they were lithium polymer, and lithium polymer are different than lithium ion. They're just like they're more of a they're liquidy, more liquid, less solid. And if they get a little bit bent, which can happen, especially if you have like we're selling them for RC planes and stuff, if you have a crash or just a hard landing, you can have them deform and then they catch fire the next time you go and charge them, right? And that's like the problem that was happening with all these Samsungs catching fire is they put a battery that was slightly too big in a spot that was just not quite big enough and it bent it a little bit and then they were catching fire. But so we started selling these things. Later, it became mandatory for almost every RC track that you had to charge your batteries in a fireproof container because it had so many fires. Right? And normally they're taken care of because there's so many people around. When you're at like a racetrack, there's like 30 people there, so they'll see a fire happen. But when you see a fire happen, then it's like smoke and it's problematic. And I know.
How needy are we to go, you know what, we're just going to put up with it might catch fire because we want this technology now. Like, not like, no, we're not buying your product until you work out how to make it safe. No, I'm going to deal with the risk because I want it now.
Okay. # capitalism. Right. It's just like the Fight Club reference about they take the cost of litigation plus the cost of settling and divide it and figure out what's cheaper. And that's the same thing.
Breaking rule 1.
But that's the whole thing with it. Like, there's certain things that they go to market before they realize there's a danger, right? And that can happen, and I can understand it. And then you can go, oh shit, and pull everything back. But oftentimes, by the time it's gotten to the point where there's market saturation, they can't pull it back, right? It's too late, right?
Yeah.
The technology is out there, and they just hope somebody comes up with a solution. And that's, with lithium batteries, that's what happened. They're way safer now than they were when they first started.
It's so true. I hear so many stories like of people where there's a guy at my house, actually, his house burnt down not long ago. I'm pretty sure I talked about him before. And it was a battery that was on charge. Still doesn't stop me from leaving my batteries on charge, though, because I'm an idiot.
I know. This is why they're able to do these things. They're able to sell them to us because we're stupid.
Yeah.
I leave my batteries on charge all the time. I'm an idiot. I don't even leave them on charge. They're in a cabinet on charge. Right? So they're like enclosed in.
My charge is mounted to the wall, to the fire extinguisher that's mounted on the wall. So hopefully it'll make the fire extinguisher explode and then put itself out. But
I don't think that's how it works, Adam.
No, I know.
I don't think so either, but that is a great idea.
Okay, yeah, I took us away from the digital stuff.
Oh, no, that's fine. So to continue on the battery thing, I had a fire happen with I was charging a nickel metal hydrate battery back before lithium was the thing in the RC world, and it started, it must have had like a dead cell in it. It was like a 6-pack of C-size batteries, and one of them like started exploding. So it didn't start a fire, but like acid was coming out of it or whatever makes up these batteries, and was like all over the carpet. And that's still the carpet in my room when I go visit my dad. And you can see the spot where like I had a battery on charge because I was racing that night, and like that could have burnt down my house had I not come up whenever I did. Like, it's so crazy to me to think of how quickly you can lose everything. Like, I don't know if you guys know Andy Berkey. He recently lost his whole shop.
Yeah.
I saw that on Instagram.
Yeah. And he was recently on Maker's Waffle talking about it. And it was a drying out rags.
Crazy.
Which is a whole nother one.
Those are so scary to me.
Yeah.
Because it's something that people never think about unless they are specifically told, avoid this, because it seems so safe. It's just rags, but you don't think about it.
What's the liquid that you're supposed to dry out?
So any finish basically is what they suggest.
Yeah, but the one that everyone goes on about.
So BLO, boiled linseed oil.
I have used that so many times and never have I ever dried out. I literally rags, as soon as I'm done, straight in the bin. I've never dried them out ever in my life.
And you've gotten lucky.
Yeah.
Because
Apparently.
I use the Watco teak oil as just boiled linseed oil with antifungal in it, so that you can use it outside. And I remember reading on the container and going, "That's impossible!" Like, I'm an idiot. Like, why let me push up my glasses, and I'm so much smarter than this can, but I'm not. So later, once I read "Good, Clean, Fun" by Nick Offerman, he talked about it, and I kind of I got it a little bit more. There's definitely it's possible, and then if you think about what's in your trash, often you're sweeping up sawdust.
Yeah.
Which
That's
sawdust
just what I was
itself,
going to say.
Literally done that so many times.
sawdust itself, with enough of it coming right off like a sawmill, can just spontaneously combust.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right? Like if you've ever had a wood chipper or a sawmill going and you just see like the heat radiating off all the stuff you just put through the wood chipper, it's intense.
Yeah.
And if you had that in a tent, it would definitely catch fire. And then it'd be intense in a
Yeah.
tent.
Well, and I remember when I did my workshop safety training for Instructables when we were at the pier. So basically, all of our hazardous and flammable materials had to be stored in this crazy metal locked cabinet. And we had specific places for the rags to go and things like that. And someone told a story about, having a trash can with wood bits, wood shavings, sawdust, a bunch of rags, and it ignited. And it was a plastic trash can. The trash can melted into the fire. And after that, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm never going to do anything like that ever. That just sounded awful.
I was actually about to say, it makes me think, I don't really use Finish that much. I don't really make much anymore, but boiled linseed oil, I don't really use much anymore. But I feel like if you were throwing out rags a lot, you should probably get a metal bin. Because at least then you can quickly move it out. A plastic bin's going to melt very quickly, but a metal bin you could at least try and pull out of the shop or something.
The other thing about a metal bin is if you put the lid on it, a metal bin can actually just extinguish itself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. True.
Mm. Also, on saying that, quick little service note, a fire extinguisher cost me $15 from Bunnings, a little one. Just get a fire extinguisher. It's better off to have it. It's like $15, then you can save your house. But there's so much more to it than just losing all your stuff. I think I talked about it, but I'm not sure. The guy that's house burnt down, right? His land now has been put into a fire zone because it should have been to begin with, but the zone moved or whatever, right? So he now has to build a house that costs more than double what his original house cost to build.
Wow.
His insurance paid out almost his full home loan, and he has enough left over to build a little shed. He can't build another house because I never knew this. I thought insurance would build a new house, but it doesn't. Insurance pays out the mortgage.
Depends on your insurance. Yeah.
You need to try and get another mortgage to build again. So he's pretty much he didn't just lose all his contents. He has lost everything. He's not going to have a house again because it's
so
literally going to
awful.
cost him. Yeah. It's literally going to cost him more than double what his home loan originally was just to build a house.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
So in talking about insurance, you should look at what you have for a multitude of reasons. One, you probably got the home insurance before you have all your tools, and you don't realize the replacement cost of all the things you have is ridiculous. It's something I've been meaning to go over with my insurance again because of how much my garage has changed. The other thing is you should do a shop tour video routinely.
Yeah.
Walk around your thing, get that thing uploaded to even your Google Photos or whatever backup you use, and talk about all the different tools you have. Because that is one way of showing what was in there.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes fires make things disappear.
Yeah. I know Tyler and I did that in 2020 when we had to evacuate from the East Troublesome fire here. Yeah, we were just walking around every room and I had to open up all my closets because I have so much stuff stored and it's just, Yeah, you don't think about that thing or all of that stuff usually until it's too late. So it's always good to get a jump on it.
Mm.
Yeah. So in talking about fire extinguishers and fires, there are different fire extinguishers, and a lot of people don't realize that. And there are different ones for different things. And I think lithium batteries require certain fire extinguishers. And most of them that you get for like kitchen, like that you would get at a Bunnings or whatever, are like kitchen
Yeah.
rated. So there's probably good. But you should definitely check to see if that one works with the type of fires you're likely to have in your shop.
Well, especially if it is from rags, because that'd be oil.
Yeah.
So
and
you don't
chemical.
want a wet extinguisher if you're going to be dealing with oil. You need a dry
Right, same with
powder.
electrical. Because the other
Yeah.
thing is, like, an electrical fire is very easy to have in a shop,
Yeah.
Mhm.
especially if you're like me and do your own electrical.
I actually, so part of my qualifications for work is I am fire extinguisher qualified. So I had to do a full course. We lit a train on fire and had to put it out. And yeah,
Nice.
it's really, so like where our college that we have for training, they have like a 2-car train that they use for training purposes. They don't do it anymore, but when I went through training, they actually light a fire in the bottom of the carriage, and
Oh,
you
wow.
have to go in and put it out. They have like the fire marshal, and everyone comes and sets it up and stuff. But yeah, it's really cool. So yeah, we get tested on our knowledge of fire extinguishers and stuff like every year. I don't know what is going on with my camera. For anyone who's watching, I'm sorry that I keep going out of focus.
It keeps
Because I'm on
focusing on
auto.
your microphone. Yeah, it keeps seeing your microphone.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
What if I move you out of frame? No, because then now I'm going to sound weird. All right,
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
We'll do
I'm
it
not
for
going to worry
next
about it now.
week. Don't worry.
But for next
Yeah.
week, I have to like manually set the focus and then lock it. Yeah, so like I'm fire extinguisher trained and everything, and then
Are you
I'm
first aid
also,
trained?
that was about to say, I'm also first aid trained. So every year I go through first aid training. So
Oh, wow.
because that works. So we are, my particular job, I am the only person that's qualified in first aid. Like my job is the only person qualified. So all the customer service attendants on the stations are not first aid trained. The trained driver, not first aid trained. I am the only person that's first aid trained.
Wow.
So are you the only one who's required to be? Because I'm sure some of them are.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the only person that has to be, like, my job pays for it, sends me to
Right.
first aid training, everything. Yeah.
And
But
are you
like,
standard or advanced first aid?
Advanced.
Oh, nice.
Because we deal with a lot.
Advanced.
But
yeah.
But like, so, because like my main job is like, I am not just a first aid officer, but like I am like not in charge. I have, what's it, like the welfare, like I'm responsible for everyone's welfare on the train.
Oh, wow.
And everything.
So you're the safety officer.
Yeah,
Pretty much,
safety
yeah.
officer.
Yeah.
Well, I recently did first aid training, and I think it's important. Anyone who has a shop should probably go through it because it definitely doesn't hurt. They talk a little bit about all the different ways you can get injured, and
kids.
a lot of them having to, or if you have kids, that's a big reason why I did it. But if you have a first aid kit, you should probably look to see if you actually know how to use half the stuff in it, because a lot of first aid kits come with stuff that if you're not first aid trained, you don't know how to use it. If you're not advanced first aid trained, you don't know how to use it.
So I get first aid kits from work. I have 4 in my shop. My wife opened one to get me a Band-Aid. First thing she pulls out, amputee bag. She's like, what the fuck? Why is this in here?
Oh, God.
So I think, so Christy from Twisted Twine, when we were at High Caliber Camp, she made everyone first aid kits. And now I have one in my basement shop. I didn't have one then, but now I do. And I think it's really important to have it, even if it's just for like the small stuff that, just stopping bleeding is important. But, it's definitely something like that you should identify the ways in your shop that you can get hurt, right? So if you do mainly 3D printing in your shop, it's unlikely that you're going to have to worry about an eye wash station.
Yeah.
Right? But if you do a lot of like woodworking or metalworking, it's a good idea to have, if you're using a grinder or a lathe, you should definitely have, like, obviously wearing your safety gear, but if you should definitely you should definitely consider having a portable eye wash station. They have ones that like just go over your eye and like wash it out. You should definitely have stuff for major cuts.
Yeah.
If you have if you are like bleeding out, the ambulance can only get to you so fast. And if you stop the bleeding or even slow the bleeding, your chances of survival go up so much.
Yeah. Well,
Are you
I think
first
it's
aid?
also a good idea. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go. You go.
Well, and like y'all were saying, I think it's also good to have it in multiple rooms, multiple places. Because if you have to run 100 yards like from your shop into the house to get the kit, like that kind of fucking sucks. So, because that's something that I've definitely struggled with. We tend to just have one in the bathroom because most times, like, it's like cooking injuries, like a little burn or maybe like a cut on a finger. But when there is something bigger, we definitely need more stuff because for me, like I have a blood disease, I'm a free bleeder. And so it's like, yeah, I got to have something nearby because there's going to be a lot more blood than a normal person would see.
Well, that is. Are you first aid trained?
I am. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I was in college because of my like career focus, like public health, and then had to go through it a couple of times when I was at the pier at Autodesk because we had, full workshops. And because the kitchen was considered a workshop, I had to do everything.
Yeah.
All right. So I was just looking up the average ambulance response time in Sydney is 9.53 minutes. I Googled how long it takes to bleed to death if you cut your finger off. It said, and everything says you probably won't bleed to death because your blood should clot. But if you were to cut your arm off, you'll bleed to death in 5 minutes. So half the amount of time it takes the ambulance to get there.
Ooh.
But you'll die a much lighter person. And if you want to understand that comment, you got to listen to the pre-show. So before we go into thanking our patrons, I wanted to talk about everyone talk about one incident they've had in the shop that they consider to be a shop safety incident that they learned from. And Jessy, you're going to go first.
Okay, so because I have so much anxiety, I actually don't have any issues or incidents with power tools.
Okay.
But I did gesticulate with a shovel too much once and like took off part of my big toe.
What?
Okay, so when we were living in Oakland, California, all we had was this sad little backyard that you walked down some stairs to, and we wanted to make it nicer. So we bought all sorts of stuff. We like weed eated all of it. We got it all trimmed up, cleaned everything out. And then we were going to try to take some concrete slabs up that had been put down. And in the process of doing that, I was talking to Tyler and gesticulating with the shovel and brought it down on a concrete slab I didn't realize was right underneath, like, a fourth of an inch of dirt. And it bounced and came back and hit my big toe, which led to an infection and a very long recovery period. So I guess
wow.
the takeaway here is don't gesticulate with your tools. That's really
what
dumb.
What does gesticulate mean?
Yeah.
Like, sort of emotive talking, like talking with your hands would be like gesticulation. So if you're using your body to sort of express what you're saying, which I do a lot, and I learned a very hard lesson that day.
I've definitely learned it, just not that hard before. Definitely like smack some stuff with my hands, like just like talking and just whack.
Yeah.
That felt like someone telling a story that has one of those word of the day calendars and they just want to show off a new word they learned.
No, I'm just the sad kid that read every book and I know too many words.
Hey, that's not sad. My son's like that. I love it. Well, I don't know if I learned from my mistakes. That's my problem. Like I cut myself with a Stanley knife because I cut towards myself. I still cut towards myself all the time. But I will say the one thing that I did learn, and I don't know if it's because I didn't learn it before because I always bought cheap things, but CNC bits are very sharp. I cut my finger really bad on it, putting a CNC bit into the CNC.
Yep.
Maybe router bits are the same, but I've always bought cheap ones, so I don't know. But that was the one thing I learned is don't touch the sharp edge.
Solid advice.
I think it's a Japanese proverb that's like, a falling knife has no handle. I love that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, yeah.
Because there's nothing worse than trying to catch a falling knife. Like, don't do it. Right? It's got no handle till it's on the ground, till it stops moving.
After you go, I just have one quick thing I want to talk about, but you go first.
So, the biggest thing, I don't know if I've fully learned from it yet, but it has to do with kickback on the table saw. And the few times it's happened to me have all been times when I was doing something that I probably shouldn't have been doing. So cutting something that was not quite wide, like it was like, oh, this is on the edge of, is it too wide to go through, or should I cross cut it, or like even if I'm ripping it, like ripping through the grain, but really it's such a wide piece, I probably should get out the cross cutting thing to do it. But I'm ripping it, so took that one in the gut. Oops. The other day I was trying to cut 3 things at once on the miter saw, stack cutting, and I've done this tons and tons of times. But every other time I've ever done it, it's been with like long pieces. So you have a ton of grip, right? A ton of leverage to hold all 3 of them. And this time, they were smaller pieces. They weren't like beyond the safety limit small of like, don't put your hand too close, but they were getting there. And I was taking off a small amount on each one. And one of them, the second one, gripped and flipped out from underneath the saw and jammed itself up inside. It spun the saw blade off. Saw guard got caught up inside of it, and like it's now got a nasty rash on it. One of the bits of it hit the garage door. Like if you've seen my shop, the like miter saw is right in the center. Like flew across. I didn't find it for like 3 days.
That's terrifying.
I had to take the whole saw apart. And I just went like, that was stupid, Grant. Why didn't you just cut all 3 of these like one at a time? You didn't save any time at all. So I'll say this, and this will be like my parting comment to everyone. My parting bit of wisdom is that if you cut corners on safety, you won't save time in the long run. It will eventually come up, and it will cost you so much more time. Right? And no one's going to learn. No one's going to listen to me. I understand it. I'm just saying it. Try and learn from others' mistakes. Every regulation was written in blood. Every safety, every OSHA regulation is written in blood.
It's true. That's a very dark way to end it for you, but yes, it is true.
But now Adam has a point to say.
Well, I realize what I was going to say is so off topic that I'm going to say it for the after show.
All right. I'd like to thank our Patreon people because that's on topic, especially the F-Clamp level, Vincent Ferrari from Digitally Creative, Scott from Dad It Yourself DIY, Joe Herdina, Rich from Lowen Designs, and David Wood from DW Wood Builds. Thank you to all of them and everyone else who supports us. As I mentioned last week, we're going to be changing from a per creation or per episode model into a subscription-based monthly model. So you'll see that happening on Patreon. If you want to find out about all that, you can go to patreon.com/clamp. And you'll also get access to a pre-show, an after-show, our Discord, which includes a monthly hangout that's going to happen the first Tuesday of every month, or maybe, another date, depending on when everyone's schedules line up. But we're going to have a monthly hangout. We're going to give you a keychain. You're going to get a sticker. It's going to be great. Sign up on patreon.com/clamp. And now, CLAMPmendations.
CLAMPmendations.
All right, so my CLAMPmendation for this week is going to be a band called Electric Callboy. and they are pretty much if a heavy metal band, and a boy band had a German baby, and they are so fucking amazing. Like 90% of their
description is
songs are in
magical.
English. I know. 90% of their songs are in English. Like there are some with German, but even the German ones are so fun. But it's like real like dance music, but also heavy, like goes into heavy metal and like real dance. Like the chorus will be dancey, but then the actual like the what's in between the choruses,
The
the
verses.
verses. Yeah, like the verses are like heavy metal, so it's like real poppy, and then into like heavy metal, back into pop, back into it's so good. And like they're like because like they're German, right? Even though I don't know why they sing in English because they are very German, but they're like they're real like what you would like you watch them like perform and stuff, or you watch like their music videos, and it's what you would expect. Like it's like that oh what's that word, like what you would expect Germans to be like sort of thing.
Stereotype?
Like yeah, stereotype.
Yeah.
Like Euro trip stereotype.
Cool.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, I promise you'll get addicted. Like so many comments on YouTube are like, I don't like heavy metal music and I am addicted.
Yeah, it kind of sounds along the same lines as baby metal, which I love. I don't know if y'all have heard of them.
I know baby metal.
They're fantastic. It's a Japanese girl group heavy metal band.
Yeah.
And so it's like very kawaii and amazing, but also really rocks, and I love it.
The only time I've heard of that is that apparently people were giving them shit, and I think it was Rob Zombie or someone else, some other heavy metal, was like completely came to their defense and said like they're creating music and whatever, like fuck off, basically.
Yep. You'll probably hear one of like Electric Callboy songs and be like, I have definitely heard this on TikTok because they've been blowing up on TikTok a lot.
No, not me. Jesse, what have you been? I'm not on TikTok. Jesse, what have you been listening to? What have you been watching? What do you want to? What does everyone else need to listen to?
Yeah, there we go. So I am recommending the Too Scary Didn't Watch podcast. If you are the sort of person who is really interested to know what's happening in the horror movies, but you're not quite brave enough to watch it, this is a great podcast for you. I am definitely the Sammy of the podcast. She's the one that watches the movie and tells the two other ladies what happens. And I just love the amount of gasping and, oh no, oh my God, that happens during the podcast. It's very funny. And I don't know, it's really nice to listen to after I've watched a movie just to see how non-horror people would react to it.
So is that so the host tells the other two that haven't seen the movie about the movie?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Cool.
Like
that's a cool
take
concept.
Notes in the theater. Yeah. It's really good.
That's funny. Do they do like modern movies or is it like?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
like
spoiler alert.
they just did. Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah, okay.
Like they just did Evil Dead Rise, and even though I haven't seen Evil Dead Rise yet, I've listened to so many podcasts about it just because I was interested. Because it's not really going to make a difference when I actually watch it.
Well, I am going to recommend everyone go check out Papa Ridge Homestead. It is Austin's dad, Troy, has started up. He is going to be, I think he's going to be retiring this year, and he has started like trying to push his content creation. And so he's got an Instagram, a Facebook, and a YouTube. He took over Austin's surfboard YouTube channel, so he's already got the 1,000 subscribers.
Nice.
He just now needs the minutes. But go check him out on all the different social media. Apparently, Papa Ridge is the location they live in, and it is not. And Papas are apparently a thing. Anyways, I was just like, I thought Papa was because he's a grandpa. And
that's what I was trying to decide, because Papa is definitely a thing.
Right, never heard of it before. Apparently, it's a thing, and apparently, Papa Ridge is the location they're at in Virginia. So it's he does some fun stuff. If you like Austin, then you can see him like in the background of some of the videos, and he specifically like doesn't show his face because he doesn't want to give his dad that much of a boost.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of work for High Caliber Camp, right?
Oh
He
yeah,
helps out heaps with that. Yeah.
yeah. Like he does like half of everything that Austin says. I did this. It's probably his dad.
Austin just does like the stuff on camera, and his dad does everything else.
Right. So now his dad's trying to do the on-camera stuff. So go check him out.
Cool. Yeah,
All right.
I've seen his videos. They're pretty good.
Yeah. All right. It is the Ask Us Anything portion. And this week we have a question from DW Woodbuilds. Is there a difference between the hobbyist and the maker? If so, what?
So for me, it's money and wanting to make money. I think it's all about whether you feel like hustling or not. I think if you are a hobbyist, you're content to do it for yourself. And if you're a maker, you've probably tried to monetize it at least a few times.
That's a great point, except for like Grant would make money from YouTube and has done from Facebook. I know that for a fact. But I would still consider it a hobby for him.
Right. Or is it a side gig? Like, according to my taxes, it's a second job. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So maybe it's like if it shows up on your taxes,
But
you're a maker.
would you call yourself a hobbyist or a maker? But see,
Well, I would say they're not. So for me, I would say they're not mutually exclusive.
yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
You can be a maker and a hobbyist, but you could be a maker and make money at it, right? So you could be a professional maker, or you can be a hobbyist maker. So I don't think hobbyist and maker are separate.
Otherwise, my name would have to be Hobbyist Mackie, not Maker Mackie, because I don't make money.
Well, yet.
Yes.
If you keep making videos, you might crack that special number, and you'll get those.
I know. Stay tuned.
30 cent.
I'm not far off.
Yeah, you get those 30-cent ad payments from Google. It'd be wonderful. Anything else more to add, Adam?
I honestly no. I don't think they are different. So I don't have an answer to the second part of the question because my answer is no.
Okay. Well, I want to.
Well, and I think because I'm on like the tech side of making, I have a different view of it because there is so much money in that sphere. And so when I think of maker in the tech world, like it's almost always like sponsored or partnered with, there's so much stuff going on there.
Well, I think there's a lot of makers who do it as a hobby. And I think like we like to think of this community, and we even talked about it, but we wanted to think about this community as like the people we know in the maker community. There are a lot of people out there making things, not part of the maker community, right? And they can be hobbyist. Like some of the train dioramas and model making that I saw when I worked in the hobby shop would blow the doors off of everything that people are making on YouTube pretty much. Like when I see like these people recommend like, oh, you got to go check this guy out. He does awesome stuff. And I'm like, yes, it's good. But I remember working in the hobby shop and people coming with like fucking Polaroids showing me shit that I was like blown away with. And, like they didn't even have I worked before digital cameras, but it was like, or people would bring in, like we used to have like we had a display cabinet for people to bring in models. So we would like rotate them through. So people had a place to share their things. And like some of the stuff I was blown away with the details, the like all the little stuff. And these people did it in their basement and showed it off, not on the internet, nowhere else, only on like if in this display cabinet in a single hobby shop, right? Those were hobbyists. Yeah. And there were people that would come in and to the hobby shop and buy stuff and were selling stuff. I don't know. So
before you think TF Turning, we need more questions because they're all from DW Woodbuilds at the moment.
Yes.
I'll post another ask on Instagram and also poke people in our Slack.
Perfect. On our Discord.
Yeah,
Slack? Sorry.
This isn't Tumblr.
I want to thank TF Turning for our theme song. If you want to find us, you can find us on Discord and not Slack. And you can get that link by follow. There's a Instagram story that has a link, or if that doesn't work, just DM us and we will get back to you with the link to get into our Discord. And you can find us on Instagram and everywhere else by searching Clamp Podcast. Until next time, cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.